Project MK Ultra was a CIA mind control program began officially in 1953. MK Ultra consisted of a myriad of experiments undertaken on human subjects. While some of these people were willing test subjects, many of the people experimented on in the MK Ultra program had no knowledge of and had not given consent to be a part of these experiments. Many of these experiments were illegal. In some cases, subjects were secretly given high doses of psychoactive drugs, including LSD. Some of the other experiments included electroshocks, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and verbal and sexual abuse. These experiments were conducted in many different settings, including universities, hospitals, and prisons. In some of the earliest MK Ultra experiments, LSD was administered to mental patients, prisoners, and drug addicts, reportedly to see if the drug could be used to make Soviet spies defect against their will, or be used by the Soviets against CIA agents. One of the more outlandish experiments, dubbed Operation Midnight Climax, saw the CIA set up brothels within safe houses in San Francisco. Men who came into the brothels were dosed with LSD and then filmed and studied through one-way mirrors. Another of the more notable LSD dosings was when a Dr. Frank Olson, chemist for the Army, was unwittingly dosed against his will with LSD by his CIA supervisor. 9 days after being dosed, Dr. Olson fell to his death from the 13th floor of his hotel room. The official explanation was that he had succumbed to depression induced by the drug, although it has widely been theorized that he was quote-unquote eliminated, as he had reportedly approached his superiors sometime earlier with doubts about the morality of the project and even considering resigning from the project. Some of the more heinous experiments were conducted in Canada, now known as the Montreal Experiments. These were conducted by British psychiatrist Donald Ewan Cameron. The most notable experiments by Cameron were his use of electroconvulsive therapy at 30 to 40 times the normal power of then standardized electroshock therapy. The other notably heinous experiments administered by Cameron were his quote-unquote driving experiments, where he would put the subjects into drug-induced comas for weeks at a time while playing tape loops of noise or repetitive statements. The subjects of these experiments were often carried out on patients with relatively minor anxiety or depression symptoms, and many times resulted in the subjects becoming incontinent and suffering from long-term amnesia. In 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered all MK Ultra files destroyed as whisperings of illegal CIA experimentation were beginning to leak out into the public sphere. The New York Times alleged that the CIA had conducted illegal experimentation in 1974, which led to investigations by Congress to look into these purported illegal activities. Based on how much has come to light since then about these deeply disturbing experiments, it really makes one wonder what else took place that we'll never know about. What was destroyed in those files? How many more people were really affected? And what sorts of other morally bankrupt experiments were conducted on unwitting human test subjects? Some of the more notably infamous people to have allegedly been subjected to MK Ultra experimentation were the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski during a study in his sophomore year at Harvard, in which subjects were reportedly purposefully brutalized psychologically; Boston mobster James Whitey Bulger, who alleged that he was repeatedly dosed with LSD during a prison stint in Atlanta in 1957; and Sirhan Sirhan, the assassin of Robert F. Kennedy. Sirhan's lawyer, Lawrence Teeter, has expressed the belief that Sirhan committed the assassination while, quote, operating under MK Ultra mind control techniques, end quote. These are only a few examples of some of the experiments conducted during Project MK Ultra. Now, they supposedly pulled the plug officially by 1976, but these experiments were conducted on an unwitting populace at home and abroad for over 20 years without repercussion. Now, how can we be sure that they ever really stopped? And if you'd like to look further into the subject, I would suggest looking up Project Artichoke. Another good place to look would be on the CIA's own website, cia.gov, and go to the viewing room, and you can actually go ahead and look at some of the declassified documentation there. Thank you very much for checking out the first episode of the show, and I hope you'll be back again.